We live in a world where we can't quite exactly agree about what the truth is. It's a strange thing to not know what an objective notion of truth, what we share, truly is, what brings people together into a world that we experience differently. Well, unfortunately, there are plenty of examples in the Torah where that inability to see the truth of the other or beyond the truth of the self, or imagine a world where there can even be two truths about the big things. That happens in the Torah quite often. In our parasha, in our Torah portion, Re'eh, which is Deuteronomy, within which you can see chapter 12, there's a very interesting beginning, and I wanted to just quote the Torah itself, then share a piece of midrash, a rabbinic writing around it, and perhaps maybe even recommendation for how we might see the world in front of us a little bit differently, maybe even than the Torah imagined. So the beginning of the parasha says, Re'eh anochi noten lifnechem hayom, see I place before you today, bracha uklala, a blessing and a curse. So if that were the entire Torah portion, you might look out at the world and say, oh, is this a blessing? Or is it a curse? Is that a blessing? Or is that a curse? Immediately after that verse, we have a teaching that talks about what you do when you come to a place, specifically the land of Israel, the land of Canaan, where other gods had been worshipped. And we are told explicitly in these verses what we are to do with a place that was a place of worship for another people. And remember that when we talk about a place of worship, it's not that there's a church on this corner, a mosque on that corner, a Sikh temple here, and a synagogue here. It's if you were the dominant culture of this place, yours was the only religion established. It's not that there was a sharing of space. It was a political statement. I have power here. Therefore, my way, my God, is the way, the God. And we're told explicitly what to do. When you get there, you shall utterly destroy all the places, all the makom, where the nations whom you are to dispossess worship their gods on the mountains, in the valleys, under every lush tree. And you shall smash their altars and shatter their sacred posts and destroy the images of their gods. Now, on the one hand, that's the way it was. On the other hand, the Torah as a living document and as a guide to how we live our lives spiritually, not only as Jews, but as people of faith, it's hard to reconcile with what it is to live in a world where there are actually multiple truths, multiple masks of the one God, and even incredible importance in seeing the divine image in those who don't call to God and don't believe. How do we coexist in a world celebrating the image of God in all of its different manifestations? So I wanted to share a strange story in the Talmud that turns the Torah on its head and might even be a guidepost for us. So in Masechet Avodah Zarah, the part of the Mishnah that talks about idol worship, there's a very strange section. Proclus, the son of a philosopher, asked Rabban Gamliel in the city of Akko in the north of Israel when he was bathing in a bathhouse where there happened to be a statue of the goddess Aphrodite. How can you be there? It says you can't be there with idols. He says, well, don't ask me while I'm naked. That's actually what the Mishnah says. We don't talk about law when we're not dressed. Okay, fascinating. And then when Rabban Gamliel emerged from the bathhouse, he said, I didn't come close to Aphrodite, she came close to my space. Which is a very, very strange thing to say, but deep down, one of the things that it's suggesting is that the space is not defined by what is there. The space is defined by who the dominant character is. And Rabban Gamliel is saying, no, I went to take a bath, and there happened to be a statue there. I didn't go seeking a bath where there was a statue. Fascinating. But then very soon afterwards, it's a very strange phrase in the Hebrew. So I'm going to read it in the Hebrew of the Mishnah and then make a suggestion. We have the verse that says you should destroy the images of their gods. And the Mishnah says, Lo ne'emar ella Elohechem, et shenoheg bo mishum Eloha asur, ve'et she'eno noheg bo mishum Eloha mutar. So that's translated in the one that I have before me as their gods. What is treated as a god is prohibited, but what is not treated as a god is permitted. There's a very subjective way of seeing this one very simple image. Rabban Gamliel's in a bathhouse, and there's an idol right there that has predated his visit to the bathhouse. What a strange thing. At first, he puts off the question, how can you be there if there is an idol to Aphrodite. Then he says, well, I wasn't there for the idol. But then the Mishnah goes one step further, and it's a radical suggestion how we might actually see the world in front of us as not bracha or klala, blessing or curse. It might be that you have a choice to see things as a blessing and to live your life in accordance with that. It says, yes, once upon a time people worshipped this idol. And in fact, the way that we see ancient faiths and religions and idols, that wasn't just a statement of a religious pursuit of spirituality, that was a political dominance over the entire area. Well, if that's not the way we are to see things anymore, because in fact, it's not a political dominance when someone worships in a certain way in a community, that's actually a statement of their truth, even their community's collective notion of God. But if I see your way of worshiping not as a political domination over me or of someone else, and in fact, if I make sure that my way of worshiping doesn't become a domination over you or of someone else, then in fact, I can coexist and say, I'm not here for that idol. I'm here and that idol happens to be there. And the space between is up for us all to determine. Can it be a place of blessing if there are other ways of worshiping? The Torah can't imagine that world. That's just where the Torah was. That's where the ancient world was, and that's where much of the current world is. If I am right, you are wrong. I can't have God's favor if you do too. But we must come to see, and so many of us do, that in order for us to succeed as a world, as the images of God, as dispersed and diffuse and different as God intended, perhaps, then I need to be able to see your truth, your eyes, not be defined by you, because if I feel myself defined by you, I might, God forbid, need to push you away. And you shouldn't see me as taking over your space either. We don't need to destroy each other's ways in order to be okay, in order to have God's love, in order to know that we have a place. Because the promised land has got to be a land that has space for all the promises made. May we be blessed to find blessing. Really could be that simple.